Start over here. It's live before lock Thursday, June 6th, 2019. Dave Locker and Jake Harry and 7 game early slate. It's kind of like live before lock, deeper dive strategy show. All three of them rolled into one. We got 7 games here. First pitch at 12:10, Jake, and then 12:35, 110, 115, 115, 210, and 220. So we're kind of spread out on this one.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be a nice 7 gamer. Some good afternoon baseball, hopefully, and make some profit. So, what's better than that on a Thursday afternoon?
Yeah, not much. Let's get into it. We don't have a whole lot of time. We got a little bit of a delay there. It's odd. YouTube locked us out of Restream, which not important. All right. Let's get started. Yeah, and by the way, people were mentioning that it was on the PGA one.
Yeah.
It's because it wouldn't allow us to change it over to the MLB Live before lock. But we're there now. We should be at least. And if not, it's not our fault. So roll with us. All right, Jake. Let's start it off. And by the way, you will give some insight into the crunches, right, as we go
Yep.
throughout the show.
For sure.
All right, let's get it popping. New York Mets, San Francisco Giants, Zach Wheeler, Sean Anderson. I said when we tried to do this a few moments ago, like Jason Vargas just threw a complete game shutout against the Giants. I mean, 85-mile-per-hour fastball. His best pitch is lacking, and he threw a complete game shutout against the Giants. This is such a bad team, man.
Yeah. Man, anytime you get shut out by Jason Vargas, 50-year-old Jason Vargas, you're not doing something right. So, I don't know. I mean, Zach Wheeler going right back at him. Seems like he should be able to do quite well.
He'll get torched. He'll get smoked.
Yeah.
You know it's going to
Just
happen.
classic baseball. You know, you get
Yep.
complete game shutout against a terrible pitcher, and now you go up against an actually good one. He's priced up. He's going to have ownership, and I'm sure the Giants stack will be the nuts, right?
Oh, no question. But to be fair, like if we're actually taking a logical, analytic-based approach to this, Zach Wheeler is obviously a very good pitching option today, and is going to grade out as one of, if not your top option on the slate.
Yeah, he's right up there for me. I'm not quite getting to near 40% ownership, which is what we have him at right now. But I'm certainly going to have a bunch of Wheeler. You look at this Giants team, they're about average as far as strikeouts. I don't know about this lineup, this particular lineup, but I think there's going to be swings and misses here for Wheeler. Not a guy I'm worried about playing, even for 10-5. There are some nice value bats as we go along in this slate. So, yeah, nothing really holding me back from Wheeler here. It's just the ownership thing.
Yeah, I think 10-5 on DraftKings, like it's definitely a little bit expensive. It's not to say he can't go out there and put up big numbers. Here's the one thing I love about Wheeler, right? And I know when Alex Baker, Awesomeo himself, when he joins us on the deeper dive, he talks about this a lot, and it is important. Adam and I, dude, I can't even get it right on this show, have been talking about this for a while now too. Like your ability to pitch deep in the games is really important because it will help you mitigate any damage, and it gives you more opportunities for strikeouts as well. I mean, Wheeler, even when he struggles, look at these innings pitched over his last 10. 7, 7-1, 7-6, 7-7, 6, 7-7-6. Like he hasn't pitched fewer than 6 innings over his last, 10 starts. It's one thing about him that makes him one of the higher. I don't like using the term high floor for pitching in baseball, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, he's gone at least 6 innings, his last 6 with 6 strikeouts at least, but you've seen upwards of double digits for Wheeler. So I don't know if he's quite in like the top stud, like a top 5 overall pitcher in the MLB type of thing, but he's definitely in that next tier, at least for me. So 3.3 implied total against 10-5 for Wheeler, I think is warranted. And you're probably getting a little bit of extra ownership just because of what happened last night with the Giants. But, just this game in a vacuum, I think it is a really solid spot for Wheeler, even if it isn't the greatest strikeout matchup on paper.
What are you doing on the other side of this with Anderson?
Man, I'm playing a lot of Sean Anderson, it looks like. and I'm just putting my trust in the projections on the site, which is what I almost always do, and I'm sure a lot of our premium subs as well do. So Anderson's not a guy that does strike out a lot of guys, in the Mets, again, they're not a perfect strikeout matchup either, but you're just looking for an okay performance here because there are a bunch of bats that I want to pay up for on this slate. So Anderson just kind of makes it work for me, and he grades out as an okay value. So I'm playing an uncomfortable amount of Sean Anderson right now.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. By the way, if you are a premium Awesemo subscriber, or Awesemo Plus, as we're calling it, we just updated our ownership projections, just updated player projections. So all of that is freshly updated as we move along here. What about hitters? Is there any hitting in this game that stands out to you? You look at this yesterday. Robinson Cano was in the lineup yesterday. He was dirt cheap. What was he, 3,200 on DraftKings? You're not getting that. He was pretty bad, which happens with baseball as hitters, super volatile. But is there any hitting that stands out to you in this game, especially given that you have a decent amount of Anderson?
Conforto really stands out on the other side. So that's a guy that I'll play a bunch of in my non-Anderson lineups. It's not like I'm playing 60 or 70% of Anderson or something crazy like that, but he's probably gonna reach the 20% threshold for me. Dominic Smith also batting second. That's a nice lineup bump for him. Dual position eligibility on DraftKings there. But like this bottom of the Mets lineup, I don't really have interest in. The only guy on the Giants that I'm looking at is Brandon Belt, 3,900 batting cleanup. Just lefty power against Wheeler. I think you can get to him a little bit there. So that's really the only guy. It's more one-offs and maybe two-mans on the Mets side if you're attacking Anderson.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get to some games that are a lot more appealing from a hitter standpoint. You're talking about a game. This first one that we talk about has a 4.3 run total for the Mets, and for the Giants 3.3. So a low total overall. Mets are pretty heavy home favorites too, which will probably shift a little bit more ownership towards Wheeler as well. What about Pittsburgh and Atlanta? Mike Foltynewicz coming off a pretty disappointing start. You'd think after that great outing against St. Louis, really his own first and only really solid performance of the season. He's got a home matchup with the Tigers, comes in, costs up 5 runs, 3 home runs. So get this, Mike Foltynewicz, and by the way, on the other side of this game, we've got a equally struggling Chris Archer, but more so with walk rates. Check this out, Jake. Foltynewicz has made 7 starts this season. Here are his home run totals per start: 2-1, 2-3, 2-0-3. So he's allowed multiple home runs in 5 of 7, and 3 or more home runs in 2 of those games. That's not encouraging at all.
No, that's really not at all. He's another one that does have issues with power at times. The problem I have here with Folty, and the reason I'm not really getting to him, is just because it's not a good strikeout matchup against Pittsburgh. A bunch of lefties in the lineup here, and he's 8,500. I thought he would maybe get a little bit more ownership, and I would be a little bit more comfortable with not playing him. But there's just a couple options that I like better in this range. Or I'm going all the way down to guys like, unfortunately, Anderson and some of these like 6K range guys. So not really getting to Folty. What are you doing with Archer, though? I think that's an interesting guy to talk about. There's a 5 implied total against him. I don't really like Archer that much as a pitcher. For some reason, he's striking out 26% of lefties this season, and not very many righties. I think he's under 20% versus righties. But
his walk rate's just astronomical, man. It legitimately concerns me, because when you talk about a pitcher's ability to get rather deep into games, I know he went 7 innings last time out, which is good. He was solid. Without the win points, he would have been okay. But the walks have been troubling, and he's just putting so many guys on base. I mean, against Atlanta, I know we saw, was it Musgrove yesterday, come out and give us a very surprisingly solid start. It's funny because I was all over John Means as the cheap guy, and he was good, but I think Musgrove ended up being better.
Yeah.
Two guys in the 5K range. But no, I look with Archer. I guess the question here is what what are our alternatives, Jake? Like that's what it comes down to for me. What are our alternatives here on this 7-game slate? Is it worth getting to Archer? He's got 14% projected ownership on DraftKings right now. Over on FanDuel, he's at 18%, second highest projected owned pitcher on this slate at 6,400.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there's not a ton of great alternatives. Where else really are you going to go in this range? I mean, you could go up to Fulte, but I'm not a huge fan of that. You can go to Danny Duffy versus the Red Sox. You can maybe go down to Peralta, but there's some issues with his pitch count. And then you're basically left with Quintana, who I like a lot, but it's not going to get all of my exposure in that range. So I'm kind of ending up on Archer a little bit as default. I don't really love it. The Braves are not a team I love attacking, but Archer still does have some strikeout upside, I think, in general. And it's just it's an okay price for a guy that's fully stretched out. You're not worried about his pitch count if things are going well for him, whereas you can't really say that for some of these other guys in the slate.
One thing I will point out, and I don't know how seriously people take this, but the Braves total opened at 4.6. It's at 5 right now. So that it's getting bet up. That implied total for the Braves, it's at 5 runs. For me with Archer, I think the ceiling is really capped here. I mean, the strikeouts are down. Sorry, the strikeouts in this matchup are tough to come by. He is a K per inning guy, but if he starts laboring through innings and walking guys, it's going to be really tough. On the other side, Fultonevich has allowed the 10th most barreled balls per plate appearance, which is no surprise. It speaks to how many home runs he's allowed. So are hitters in this game standing out to you on either side?
I do like some of the lefties for Pittsburgh, specifically Bell just having a just insane season so far. And then Polanco, I don't like that he's batting 6, but for 4K, I think I can get behind that. Same thing with Moran in the 5 spot. So 4, 5, 6, I like a little bit for the Pirates. And then I think if I'm going against Archer, like I know I said I'm playing a bunch of him, but I think I would just full stack this Braves team because Archer is a guy, like you said, that can struggle with walks. That's not great for one-offs if you're getting a bunch of walks, but in the context of a stack, like then you're getting guys hitting with guys on base. You're bringing up his pitch count, all that stuff, and he also is a guy that allows a ton of hard contact when things aren't going well. So I do like the Brave stack on the other side if you're not on Archer, which I completely understand. What about you?
I mean, Archer or Fulte's allowed, and I keep referencing the home runs because it's important. You know, home runs are going to win you tournaments when they come in bunches. He's allowed 8 home runs and 92 plate appearance or batters faced against righties. That's 3.54 per 9. And 2.5 home runs per 9 to lefties. 5 home runs and 75 plate appearances. So, I mean, to me, this is one of those. I don't see there being much of a gray area here. I think Fulte comes out and he looks sharp like he did against St. Louis, or he's giving up power. And the reason I say it could work out for him is because Pittsburgh might mask some of those hard hit balls with the more spacious outfield. But really, where you have Bell is very expensive. It's not that hard to get to a Pirate stack. Like on DraftKings specifically, Polanco's 4K, Newman's leading off, and again, Fulte's allowed 8 homers and 92 batters faced to same-handed hitters. He's leading off at 3,700. Colin Moran's 3,900. Tucker at 7th is 28. I'm not saying all these guys are great. So outside of Bell and Marte, this is not an expensive stack whatsoever.
Yeah, so I think they're going to get pushed up a little bit higher than they should be for ownership. Looking at
what do we have their stack ownership at? Do you have it?
I'm just loading in the top stack tool right now. Let's see. They are at
5.9%.
Yeah, so they're about actually
that's
the
pretty
correct
low
value as far as ownership and top stack percentage. So yeah,
as a matter of fact, it's funny because we have them as bottom 5 in top value, and bottom 6 in ownership. Huh. Interesting.
That's a little bit surprising to me.
Me
just
too.
Because you've got and we just got an ownership update, so everything should be updated. I'm surprised
I
more
think a
people aren't
lot
going
of
to the
it though
Pirates.
is factoring in Fultonovich. You have a lot of his previous like historical stats coming in here, and I doubt we're seeing his 2019 stats weighed nearly as heavily. That could have something to do with it. Just a
Sure,
guess.
yeah, that could be right.
I don't know because I mean he was fantastic last year and he was pretty good the year before that. This has been a pretty heavy outlier for him.
Yeah,
So I don't know if it's set to continue, but we'll move on here. We got a bunch of games to go. Detroit and Tampa Bay. Jake, what are your thoughts on Jalen Beeks here? He's up there in price. His pitch count's been all over the place. He went from 47 to 83 to 91 to 46. That's encouraging. And then Daniel Norris against Tampa Bay. Implied totals for both teams here. Let me pull them back up. We've got the Tigers at 4.8, or sorry, 3.8, and we have the Rays at 5.3.
yeah. I think Alex, when he comes up with his totals, he has them even higher than 5.3. I'm seeing 5.7 right now on
Really?
our lineups
Okay.
page. So,
Okay.
I don't like Norris. I mean, I get it. He's a $5,800 pitcher, so you can basically always make a case for those guys as long as there aren't huge pitch count concerns. You basically just need a guy like that, a price like that, just to get you through 5 and get you a handful of strikeouts. So, I mean, there's the case to play Norris. But I'm playing a ton of Tampa. They're looking like they're going to be my highest exposed stack by a pretty good margin. So I know they might be a little bit overpriced, but that's making them undervalued. Like on our top stacks tool, they really, really stick out to me as a team that's going undervalued. They've got a high chance of being the top stack, but they're not being owned as much as they should be. It's looking like so. People love Boston today. I understand that, but Tampa's just going a little bit lower owned than them. So I absolutely love Tampa against Norris here, who's just had issues striking out anyone, and that's kind of Tampa's kryptonite against lefties. They've got the highest K rate versus lefties, I think, on the season. Yeah, I think they're at 28%, I want to say. Yeah, 28% on their active roster. And then the Tigers aren't that far behind them, so I really respect Beeks. You mentioned his pitch count was going in a good direction, right, as far as playing him?
Well, I mean, it's been all over the place.
Okay.
Actually, it went from, like I said, it went from 40. Here, I'll tell you right now. His pitch count over his last 4 outings went from 47 to 83 to 91 to 46.
Jeez. So,
And keep in mind, he hasn't gone 5 innings in any of them. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. That's the positive thing about being a long reliever is you could go 3 innings or 4 innings, get 7, 8 strikeouts and still get the win. But I have a very tough time trying to gauge what his pitch count's going to be. I don't know how to.
yeah, I think the important thing you mentioned is, well, first of all, he can go 90 plus. He's done that recently. So if he's struggling to get through the 5th inning, which is all you need, he's still going to be able to, or he has the ability to throw those pitches and not get pulled, at 4 2/3 or something like that. So he just needs to get through the 5th inning. That's the good part about the long reliever. 7,600 for him, I think, is a fine price. I was surprised to see how much the Tigers were striking out versus lefties, 26.6% on the season. So Beeks doesn't have to face Castellanos and I guess Goodrum are the two guys you're a little bit worried about in this Tigers lineup. So he gets to come in and face the 5 and 6 and 7, 8 hitters. So I like Beeks for 7,600. I don't see him in the projections right now, though. I maybe missed him.
Yeah, usually we
he's up
don't.
there now.
We haven't. I've noticed recently. Maybe it's the first wave or projections. I haven't seen him in the projections or the ownership. Is he in the ownership? No. See, we have Ryan Stanek in the ownership projections, so we probably aren't going to get Beeks there.
Yeah, no Beeks, but he is in the projections right now on the last update. So it doesn't grade out as a perfect value, but obviously a good chance at the win here. And I think he makes for a good correlation play for me if I'm playing a bunch of Rays as well.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it makes sense. With the Tampa Bay Rays, are you finding yourself getting Austin Meadows in
Yeah.
these stacks because he's 5,900?
Yeah, I actually am. So I weigh ownership and projection and all that, and people just don't play Meadows at this price because they're not used to him being this price. But he is, like, putting my Osmo hat on here. If the Rays stack does go off here, there's a good chance that Meadows and Avisel Garcia and Tommy Pham, the guys that are priced way up, are going to be part of that stack doing well. So,
right, and seldom do people want to pay more for Meadows than they do for Christian Yelich.
Exactly. So, and some of these Red Sox hitters too that are going to be chalky. Like Mookie Betts is 4,600. That just looks like a typo.
Yeah.
In fact, is that a typo? I didn't. No, he actually has 4,600.
I thought it was a typo yesterday at 4,800, and nope, they got that right. Let me tell you, with him and JD Martinez, a combined 0 for 9, Boston drops 8 runs. Oh, that was enjoyable. But no, his price has been coming down, and I know it sounds crazy. Well, we'll get to Mookie. We'll get there when we get there. But yeah, some of the prices are I don't want to say off, but definitely advantageous. Any other thoughts on Tampa Bay and Detroit, though?
No, just love Tampa Bay. So those are going to be a lot of my highest exposed hitters. So I'm looking forward to that.
So Boston and Kansas City, 5.5 run total for Boston, 4.6 for Kansas City. Boston, pretty heavy favorites on the road. You've got Danny Duffy on the mound for the Royals. And then you have Ryan Weber starting this one for the Boston Red Sox. He's made 5 appearances this year, only 2 starts. He's been serviceable, I guess. His last start, he got tuned up. But aside from that, he had been very good. But he's not very good. It's just he had done a good job of limiting runs. He's really maybe league average or below league average as far as an overall pitcher goes. He's $6,300 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I don't really think there's a ton of reason to talk about him at 64. You're just going Archer there if you're going to go that cheap. And then on Yahoo, where they're running these full day slates, you've got Ryan Weber at 29. You don't have any pitching interest here, do you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you're not going to Duffy here. Even as like a leverage play, like I don't see the reason. There's just no strikeouts here for the Red Sox. And kind of same thing for Weber. Like if there was a little bit more swing and miss in the Royals lineup, or if Weber had a little bit more swing and miss in him, I'd probably consider playing a bunch of him at 6,300. But at best, he would be a guy that you're playing as a correlation play just to fit in the Red Sox hitters. So if you're going something like Archer, Weber, and you just want to stack up all the Red Sox and Rays or something like that, then I could see it, just in hopes that he gets you a win, but not a guy I'm targeting heavily. I think I had 2% of him, and I might get down to 0 by the time we get to lock. Yeah, it's basically just hitters here on both sides for me. Red Sox, very obvious value. JD and Mookie should never be 48 and 4,600. You got Bogarts priced up, so that'd be a guy I would be trying to get in. Because he's probably going to come in a little bit lower owned than he should be based on how chalky the stack is going to be. And then Weber's just a guy who, like I said, can't miss bats. So Mondesi super chalky, super expensive, but I love him batting second for 5,500. Same thing with, I think both of our guy, Ryan O'Hearn at 3,200 is one of my favorite values. You're a hard
guy too, yeah?
Yeah, that hard contact.
I know. Yeah, dude, when he puts the ball in play, it goes far. But this season's been a bit rough for me and for us and Ryan O'Hearn.
That's very true.
No, I don't disagree with you at all on that, because first of all, you're not really paying anything for him, and he's not batting 7th or even 6th. He's moved up to 5th, which is, I'm not going to pretend it's a huge difference, but I'll take a lineup bump any day of the week. Especially at 3,200, middle of the order, that's not bad. And Kauffman Stadium's not a great homer park, but it really, in terms of runs and extra base hits, has played almost hitter friendly. So I don't have any issues with this. And then of course, when you're talking about weather at Kauffman Stadium, you're looking about 80, 82 degrees. So I'll take that all day long. By the way, we have Jalen Beeks in ownership now. Ownership projections updated with Jalen Beeks, and we have him at, here we go. So Jalen Beeks, because we had Ryan Stanek earlier. Now Jalen Beeks is coming in
2%.
At Where all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, he's just at 2 on DraftKings at least.
Is he?
Hmm.
Oh, maybe it didn't update for me. Huh. All right. I don't. Oh, I know why. Because I filtered by starting pitcher, and
There
he's a
you go.
relief pitcher. That'll do it, Jake. Yep, 2%. So no real ownership on Beeks. I just quickly going back, circling back to that. You could be right. Like he is the ultimate tournament play because if he does go 5 innings with 8 Ks on this slate that doesn't have a ton of good pitching at no ownership, it's really not a crazy idea.
Yeah, he doesn't like he could go 4 innings and be worth it. Like if he goes 4 innings, 5 or 6 strikeouts, somewhat clean, 0 or 1 runs, which is certainly doable against this Detroit team who strikes out a bunch. And Beeks has struck out a bunch of guys in limited innings this season, so he's just got a better chance at the win because he doesn't have to like if you come in the second inning, it's such a big advantage as far as your win equity.
Yep, and there's a pretty high likelihood that he's got some run support as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, yeah, 12.1% swinging strike rate this year. On this slate among 14 pitchers going, that ranks third behind only Caleb Smith and Chris Archer. Not bad. All right, back to the Boston bats though. Break this down for me. Where do you stand? Obviously, we like them, and we'll get to Kansas City bats a little bit more in depth. But who are your top Boston bats, and is this a stack that you see yourself having a ton of today?
I don't know if I'm gonna have a ton of the 5-man just because I think it's gonna go a little bit overvalued compared to Tampa. So I'm kind of taking a little bit of a stand there. But yeah, it's JD, it's Mookie. Those guys are gonna come in as one-offs and 2-mans and probably 3-mans. Like they're just tough to avoid at those prices. Those two guys specifically, and even Benintendi you could throw in there. I know he's not great versus lefties, but 4,400 batting second for a team with the near 6 implied total is just kind of crazy. So it's just really, really good value. They're going to come up a little bit for me, but as far as the full stack, I don't know that I'm getting to where the field is at.
Okay. And Kansas City, I mean, you mentioned Mondesi and O'Hearn. Like O'Hearn definitely opens things up a bit. Cuthbert batting 6 is 37. You look at him on DraftKings, the ownership on a Kansas City stack is, where are we? 5th or 6th. Top value is right in the middle as well. And top stack probability is, I think, 5th or 6th as well. So really not bad. On FanDuel, you've got them right around the same thing. Same, pretty similar in ownership, top value, top stack probability. But I definitely think there is, actually, you know what? Top value, Kansas City is number 1 on FanDuel. Number 1, ahead of Tampa, Detroit, ahead of every other team. So that's kind of interesting. You might see some site-specific decisions made here on the Royals.
Yeah, for sure.
What are your thoughts on, outside of Mondesi and O'Hearn, is there anybody else that stands out here?
Not really. I think Gordon at 4,700 is a little bit of an overprice. Maybe Soler as well, righty. So it's mostly just going to be those two guys. Those are by far my highest owned Royals. But yeah, I mean they're a fine value play elsewhere. Like it's looking like on FanDuel, they're really good values all over the place. So as far as DraftKings, which is where I'm playing this morning, yeah, it's mostly just going to be those two guys.
All right, let's talk about St. Louis and Cincinnati at Busch Stadium. That game yesterday was postponed, and now we've got pretty good weather here, 80 degrees, going up to around 85 degrees towards the end of this game. Shouldn't have any issues today. DeSclafani, Dakota Hudson, same matchup as yesterday. And I mean, I hammered this home a lot on the deeper dive and on the deep dive. DeSclafani's really not bad against righties at all, but my God, Jake, this dude is bad against lefties. I mean, like super bad. There's really no redeeming qualities against left-handed hitters, and you have not a ton of them, but enough of them today on the season. And it's a smaller sample. It's more than 100 plate appearances, but it's a smaller sample, to really get a good idea. But you can go back and look at DeSclafani for however long you want, and you're going to see that he has always struggled against lefties. 400 plus WOBA, 300 plus ISO, and more than 3 home runs per nine to lefties this year.
Yeah, just so awful versus left. Just completely different pitcher. I mean,
Yeah, he is.
that's like the only way I can put it. So like Carpenter 4,400 leading off a team with the 5 implied total. Just a phenomenal play, I think, on DraftKings. He seems underpriced across the industry. Basically, when I'm doing the cheat sheets, he comes up everywhere, basically always. Fowler, I think, is a fine play as well. You're looking for the lefties here against DeSclafani. You can do the full stack. Goldschmidt and DeJong are both too cheap, even if DeSclafani is good versus righties. But I actually am getting to some DeSclafani just because most of the bats you're worried about here, outside of Carpenter, are right-handed.
I
And
totally
DeSclafani
agree.
is
It's worth a
6,800.
roll of the dice.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. Like, he is, let's see where he's at right now. I thought he was at 4% earlier. Yeah, he's still at 4%. So I'm triple that. So 12, 13%, somewhere in there. And that's a spot where I'm comfortable playing triple the field of a $6,800 pitcher when I'm trying to pay up for Tampa and I'm trying to pay up for Boston a little bit as well. So it's just the nature of the slate is why I'm getting to DeSclafani. I think he's probably going to give up a home run to Carpenter, but hopefully he can withstand it after that.
Yeah, you would hope so. It's not like Fowler and Wong and Wieters are, juggernauts at the plate. I do think though his one-offs they're fine. Like I think Wieters at an always weak catcher position is fine. I do like Carpenter. I mean, 431 WOBA, 349 ISO, 3.2 home runs per nine, 182 WHIP, and a 20% K rate, 10% K minus BB. Against righties though, 26% K rate, no walks, not a lot of power. A decent amount, still a decent amount of home runs, but he's limited them, and a 257 WOBA. So it is a big difference there. A sub 1 WHIP against righties. You could be right here. If he can navigate around the lefties in this lineup, you could see a good start from DeSclafani. Hudson faces a weaker team for sure, but he's not a very strong pitcher. How do you view this spot between Hudson and the Reds?
I thought I was going to get to a bunch of Hudson, which I hate. I feel like he's chalk all the time. I get, I'm a little bit closer to the field than I would like to be. It looks like he's coming in the mid-teens as far as ownership. So if I get to 15 or 16%, I think I'm okay with that. I just didn't want to be over on a guy that I don't think misses a ton of bats here. So I think the Reds are fine. Like Votto, of course, at 3,800. I know it's been kind of a lost season for him so far, but Dietrich's been awesome if you can stomach 5,100 for him. I like Suarez for 4,600 as well. So I'm getting to some of these Reds, and I'm kind of indifferent on Hudson. Where do you land on him?
Yeah, I'm not enthusiastic about Dakota Hudson. Is he terrible? I don't know. Terrible is a strong word, but especially because he's actually done a decent job of keeping runs off the board to some extent. I know most of the home runs he's allowed have come against the Brewers anyway, but he's just another one of those guys that against lefties will struggle. So when you look at his numbers, 140 batters faced, monster weighted on base average, 434, 267 ISO, 2.6 home runs per nine, and a 2.23 WHIP. So he's allowing a ton of base runners as well. He does get ground balls, but he also gives up a ton of hard contact. So I think that balances itself out. And he has a 5.39 xFIP. I like the lefties here. The righties, I'm just not nearly as interested in. He hasn't allowed any power to righties. 1 home run and 126 batters faced. It's a low mark, man. 0.28 home runs per nine. Those are numbers that I take into consideration every day. And I think with Hudson, lefties have just been able to get to him, and righties have struggled. So if you wanted to go with like a cheap Votto, I get that. Yesterday, Derek Dietrich on FanDuel was 3K. He's 31 today. I still think he's one of your better overall players at second base. 3,100 for a guy that's hit 17 home runs, all of them against righties, is always going to appeal to me.
Kind of amazing that he's hit 17 home runs. It's like you just
Crazy,
leave
right?
the Marlins, and then all of a sudden you just have a career season. That's what it
I know.
seems like.
It's incredible, man. And I think for that reason, a guy like Dietrich stands out. On DraftKings, if you wanted to be contrarian and get to Dietrich, go ahead and do so, because my guess is you're not going to see a lot of ownership on a $5,100 Dietrich.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. No one's going to play Dietrich for 5,100. Like the sample size is not caught up yet. So like if you're still using stats from 2017, which basically every model is going to, he's never going to pop up. So if you
Right.
do like a red stack, he would be a guy that I would be trying to get in.
And I'm stacking the Reds. I would normally wouldn't be too concerned about this, but I do want all three lefties in the top 5 of that lineup. It doesn't have to be in every lineup, of course, but those to me would be the priority. Obviously, Suarez is very good as well. All right, Miami and Milwaukee. I'll throw this one over to you, Jake. Caleb Smith, and we have Freddie Peralta here making a start. He's kind of pitched out of the bullpen, pitched as a starter. He's been all over the map this year. His pitch count's been pretty limited. And your run totals here for the Marlins, 3.7, 4.9 for the Brewers. That means the Marlins are going to score about, I don't know, 14 runs today.
Yeah, I think 14, 15, somewhere in there. That's been par for the course for them lately on this little hot streak they've had. So,
dude, just listen to this real quick. Their runs over their last 4 games, 9, 9, 16, and 8.
It's just ridiculous for a team that they don't really have much power, or at least you wouldn't think so. Like,
no,
Anderson, maybe. Harold Ramirez has been promising. It doesn't really make that much sense, but it's baseball. Sometimes teams go on these month-long stretches where they're decent, and otherwise they're just terrible. So, certainly not expecting another outburst for the Marlins. Wouldn't be shocking if that happened, though, especially against a really volatile pitcher in Peralta. So the question I have with Peralta here is just how deep can he go? He only threw 54 pitches in his last outing. He hasn't been starting recently. So that's the concern I have with him when I was alluding to guys that you don't know how deep they're going to go. And you don't really know. So maybe if you give him like 70, 75 pitches, he could get you through 5. And he is a guy that can, when he's like pitching really well, he can be efficient and strike out a bunch of guys in a limited amount of innings. But for 7K, he's not really coming up for me all that much here. And I thought we might see some more ownership on him. So I don't really have much Peralta, and I don't really have Marlins bats either.
Okay. And neither do I. I probably should have Marlins bats. But you know what? The last thing you want to do is jump on towards the end of something and
Yeah.
call me a skeptic, but it's hard for me to imagine the Marlins continue at such a torrid pace. I mean, like, I only say that because they aren't good, right? Like, there's a few guys that they might end up being decent hitters, sure, but they're not. This team as a whole is not going to continue producing at like a league best clip. It's just not going to happen ever.
Yeah,
so,
it's a nice little run here, but I think it's going to end sooner or later, and you're going to see them regress to where they should be, which is one of the worst teams in the league and a team that strikes out a bunch against righties. And I don't know. Should we be looking at playing Peralta here? I know we're only 10 minutes to lock, but like, there's so many righties here. Like, he could be okay in 5 innings, right?
Yeah, I have some interest. I definitely have some interest. Does it scare the shit out of me? Of course it does. Because Peralta in his own right this year hasn't been very good. And, 2-pitch pitcher is a guy that throws his fastball 80% of the time. When that pitch isn't working, like, what are you gonna rely on? What are you gonna resort to? So, some interest in Peralta, but obviously tournaments only. There's no way you're touching this guy in cash, and you pretty much understand that it could go poorly for you. But if he's got his stuff going, then Peralta could have big numbers. But here's the thing, Jay. We've got him projected at 33% on DraftKings. It's not like it's a contrarian play here.
That's true. Yeah, I guess I did get to it. So I was looking more like me versus the field. I was getting way below, but I actually did get to closer to the field of Peralta than I had imagined. Like when I ran my dummy crunch right before, I was getting basically no Peralta. Now I got up to closer to where the field's at. So I'm okay with that. I still don't know if I could stomach taking these Marlins bats. Like I just, like you said, I don't want to jump on right at the end of a bad team that's had a nice little hot streak here.
It's tough. And I think with Peralta, he'll probably go, I don't know, maybe 75, 80 pitches if he doesn't get rocked.
Yeah.
So, all right, we got one more game to get to, but quickly, thoughts on Caleb Smith and the Brewers?
Yeah, Smith is a guy I respect a ton. I just don't think it's the day for him. Like he's striking out both righties and lefties at over 30%, which is just amazing. So 9,400 looks like a good price, but you look at the implied total against him. Really tough Brewers lineup. Yelich and Eustakis can obviously hit lefties really well. You got Aguilar in there, who smokes everything when he makes contact. So I don't know. I just don't think it's the day for Smith. I'm ending up quite a bit underweight, and like I hope I'm wrong because I love watching him pitch. I think he's amazing, but I kind of avoiding both sides of that matchup.
Where do you stand on? Okay, both sides. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I will say this much. Smith will give up some pop. So a guy like Ryan Braun to me is a perfectly reasonable one-off here. He's not expensive. He's batting towards the top of the order, and career numbers versus lefties are remarkably good. So somebody like that I have no problems with, especially if you're getting him at a discount. All right, last one.
Just quickly, I actually did I got to some Aguilar, and then Pena was the other guy I was getting to. That was over the field. So
makes sense. Cubs, Rockies, Quintana, Lambert in Wrigley Field. Winds here. Do we have any winds? No winds. Blowing in from center field, 7 miles per hour. 66 degrees. Pretty favorable pitching weather here. As far as wind goes at Wrigley. And totals on this game, you got the Rockies at 3.6, the Cubs up to 5 runs, big home favorites. Any interest in pitching?
Yeah, this Lambert fellow is a little bit interesting to me, just missing a ton of bats at the minor league level, and then he's stretched out. The issue with him, of course, is the implied total against him, but he's not getting owned at all. So I got to about 10-11% of Lambert. It's a pretty decent pitching environment in Wrigley with the wind not blowing out. It's under 70 degrees, not super humid, obviously. So I like pitching on both sides. And looking at my hitting exposures here, the only guy I'm getting to really for the Cub, the only couple guys are Rizzo and Bryant, of course, and then a little bit of Baez as well. But it looks like I'm ending up underweight on the Cubs as a whole quite a bit.
How much Quintana did you say you have?
I have 37%, so that's 1 or 2% below where we have him projected at.
Yeah, we have Quintana, Wheeler, and Peralta as the 3 guys that are really getting the most. But Caleb Smith also pretty popular on this slate, which is a little bit surprising, I'd say. And Sean Anderson looks like the guy that you're likely going to be pretty overweight on. Am I right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
On FanDuel, Wheeler is 40%, Archer, Fulte, Anderson 19, 12, and 8 respectively. So Wheeler soaking up the large majority of that ownership, or 40%. So not a majority, but you get the point.
Right.
All right, Jake, hitters here, and then we got about 5 minutes.
Yeah, just some of these Cubs, I think like the Red Sox, like they're popular overall, but as a full stack, I'm not seeing a lot of lineups where I'm deploying a full stack because I think Lambert is actually okay. And the Rockies bats, you're looking at Arenado and Story if you're trying to leverage off of Quintana. Never have a problem with those 2 guys versus lefties. But the Rockies stack is not one that I'm heavy on at all.
Where were you seeing the strikeouts for Lambert?
The swinging strikes, he was getting a bunch of them at the AAA level.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he's allowing 1.5 home runs per. Obviously, he's in a league that favors hitters dramatically, but 7.6 per Ks per 9, 19.8% strikeouts, 5.07 ERA. I don't know. I think this guy could get tuned up a bit here. The thing is, he gets a lot of ground balls, like most Rocky pitchers. So, I guess the ball has to be put in play. I guess he needs to avoid getting, or hitters need to put the ball in the air in order to get good numbers against him, because That's a lot of ground balls. It's not surprising. Rockies pitchers generally they bring them up. They're taking guys. They want guys that put the ball on the ground for Coors Field. All right, Jake, you want to do your thing? We got about 4 minutes here till lock.
Yeah, so I don't know. My crunches are basically already done. I've ranked out everything. I think I've uploaded to DraftKings, but just going over some of my exposures right here. It's looking like, so you see on Fantasy Crunch everything spread around on purpose, but my final exposures I got to a bunch of Wheeler, a little bit over the field actually. I got to about 50% of Wheeler, Quintana of course, Mookie Betts. It's not often you get 37% of a hitter and you're technically underweight on a guy, but that is the case. Same thing with JD. Bogarts is a guy I'm a little overweight on for the Red Sox. And then it's looking like I didn't get to as much Tampa as I thought on the crunch before, but still I think they're my second or third highest owned stack. And nothing else.
Let's filter by your pitcher exposure.
Okay, let's see here. I got to. So Wheeler, Quintana, and Peralta are actually my three owned guys, and then it's Beeks after that. I got to 17% Beeks.
Very
a bunch
interesting.
of Sean Anderson after that. Came down a little bit, 15% Anderson. That's a number I'm more comfortable with. 11% Lambert, and then everyone else is under 10, like Hudson and Caleb Smith and Desclafani, Archer. It looks like he came down a little bit in the projections, so didn't get to as much of him as I thought I would when we were talking about that game.
All right. Well, here we go. We got 7 games. Lock starts in just a few minutes. If you're not throwing 150 lineups, if you're just single or 3 max entering, you'll have 25 minutes after this till the next game, and there's a good chance that Wheeler might be the only guy in your lineup. Maybe
Right.
Wheeler and Anderson. I think the big decision here is where do you go with that 7K pitcher like Quintana, Jalen Beeks, Peralta. I think that can make a big difference here on this slate, and I'm real tempted, just to get more Jalen Beeks than I probably should.
Yeah, Beeks. I just think people hate playing these relievers, the long relievers, when they're priced up a little bit. Like I think last year people caught on when they were priced at 5,500 and 6K, but when you see $7,500 and people are like, well, he's not probably going to go 6 innings, that turns some people off. But you just get like it's made up for in a guy who can strike out a bunch of hitters and a guy that doesn't have to face the top of the order an extra time, and a guy who's got a better chance of getting a win because he's coming in the second inning and only has to get to the through the fifth.
Sure. What's the promo code for Live Before Lock? What do we use here?
Promo code Live Before Lock, I believe. But we have MLB Strategy up on the video, so kind of a hybrid show.
So we use MLB Strategy
Sure.
to get 50% off your first month at Awesemo Plus membership. You're talking about ownership projections. You're looking at player projections, the Awesemo's top stack tool. There's so much here, and we'd love to have you be a part of the Awesemo family. The Fantasy Cruncher add-on, the lineup study, basically everything you can think about from a DFS standpoint, we've got it at awesemo.com. Use the promo code MLB Strategy, all one word, when you sign up. And say what's up in that Slack chat when you do. We're in there all day long. And also have some office hours as well. So you can ask the guys, you can 1 hour time slots, either I'm in there, Jake, Adam, Josh, Alex, of course, Awesemo. You get everybody in there from week to week answering questions and helping you out with your lineups and your process. Anything else, Jake?
No, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for sticking with us, the technical difficulties at the beginning, and good luck on this early slate. We'll be back in, 6 hours? No, you'll be back in 5, right? Breaking down the deeper dive. It'll just be you and Adam today, right?
Yeah, Thursday and Friday is Adam and myself, and then you'll be following us up to take us up to lock.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that'll do it. Good luck today. We'll catch you back here in several hours on the deeper dive.